Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Fundamentals of Customer Success in SaaS. I'm Jess Roman. I'm the National Director for Meltwater in Canada. I'm very excited to talk to you about customer success today. It's safe to say that Haley and I have been living and breathing customer success for several years now. So hopefully you are as excited about customer success as we are by the end of this. I am currently managing our Canadian operations on behalf of Meltwater, but I have been here 7 years. I originally started my career in sales, actually, and then moved into management and very quickly realized that customer success was where the majority of our business was being done, and have now developed a true passion for it. Canada has been Meltwater's fastest growing market, so it's been quite the journey so far. We have about 3,000 Canadian clients now, 80 employees across our Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal offices. So needless to say, I've been very busy in the last few years, and I'm excited to tell you about the role that customer success has played in our growth so far.
Cool. Thanks, Jess. My name is Haley Foreman. I'm also on the Meltwater team, of course. I have been with Meltwater for the past 5 years. I started on our customer success team, so working with and supporting our existing customer base. And I did that for about a year and a half before I moved into a management role overseeing one of our teams in the New York office. And most recently joined our client experience team. So now we're building out the strategy and methodology behind how we support our customers throughout the different phases of our customer lifecycle and journey, which we'll talk more about today. So we're excited to get into it. Thanks for joining us.
All right, so we've a little presentation prepared for you so that we can cover the fundamentals of customer success. Many of you are avid client experience fans and you're here today, but we want to touch on how customer success relates to software as a service businesses. So to give you a sense of the agenda today, we will tell you a little bit about Meltwater as a business so you can understand where we're coming from. And then we will spend the majority of the presentation talking about client success as a discipline. It is a fairly new space that is up and coming, and we have been a part of it for the larger part of the last decade. So we're very excited to tell you about client success and distill it to what some of those fundamental principles are when you are thinking of either starting a client success business line or really diving into it as a career and profession. So to kick it off, Meltwater is the largest privately held SaaS business. We are a software as a service that provides an all-in-one solution for PR professionals. So Meltwater was actually started in Norway back in 2001. With about $15,000 in funding. And today we are a large global business with over 60 offices globally, 30,000 customers, and about 2,000 employees. So Haley and I have definitely been a part of the rapid growth that our tech company has seen. And a big portion of that has been the strength of the client success team. A little bit of background on the Meltwater product itself. So the Meltwater product, as I mentioned, is an all-in-one PR solution, and the basis of it is what we call media intelligence. So we're allowing brands all over the world to track for what is being said about their brand online, be it traditional media types, newspapers, radio and TV, and then of course in the last decade, more importantly, anything that is being said about their brand on social media. So our customers around the world are using our tool to track for any time that their brand is being mentioned online. And then of course, we're allowing them to make sense of all that data and actually report on it to executives. And on the flip side, they then use our tool to generate more content, often either in the form of press releases or more recently in the last few years through influencer marketing, being able to run very targeted marketing campaigns. So we have an incredible set of customers. Their needs are constantly evolving, and it's been very fun to be able to provide our software to companies in every possible industry and vertical. All right, so before I jump into the textbook definition of client success, I like to give people a bit of context on how this all began. So back in the day, and all of you have experienced this, back in the day, if you were buying any sort of technology, it was mainly hardware, where you potentially bought your first computer and then you were buying the Windows 97 and then Windows 98 update. And so everything was being done in terms of purchasing these one-off pieces of software or hardware. Very quickly, we've seen a shift towards the idea that as software continues to evolve, you can actually continue to charge your customers monthly, quarterly, or annually for your service throughout their time with you. So this subscription economy, or as we like to call it, software as a service, is a relatively new field. Many people attribute the start of SaaS to Salesforce in 2000, in the early 2000s. So they were one of the first companies that decided that instead of simply selling a CRM, they could actually sell you a subscription and continue to charge you for that software as you remained a customer. So not only charging you for the software itself, but also all the service that they're providing you along the way, be it deploying the software, implementing it, onboarding you. So we are very passionate about the subscription model. We feel that it's a very smart way to run your business. But I think that now, especially, it's not foreign to anybody. So whereas when we started working in the space, I wasn't personally subscribed to many softwares or subscriptions. I think everyone on this call can think to different subscriptions that they're paying for, be it Netflix, Spotify, Peloton. There are a lot of consumer-facing softwares as a service that we're all using on a day-to-day. So that's to paint a little bit of the picture as it relates to the importance of client success. So customer success, in a nutshell, is the concept of achieving business growth by adopting a very customer-focused approach. The idea is that if your customers stay and renew and you can retain that client base, then you actually are making recurring revenue year over year. So very quickly, what SaaS businesses realized as they began to grow and scale is that if you're investing time, money, and effort exclusively in acquiring new customers, very quickly, you can't scale your business to the size that it needs to be. So it's not sustainable long term for growth results to only focus on new logo acquisition. You actually have to focus on your existing client base, the bigger it gets. So SaaS companies are now very focused on retaining existing customers, because by retaining those existing customers, you can start to recognize that recurring revenue as you're renewing them year over year. And not just renewing them, but you can often grow that existing client spend and have them purchase new products as they continue to trust you. So CS very quickly for a SaaS business, and I experienced that a lot when I started to grow the Canadian business, but CS in a software as a service company carries the largest financial responsibility very, very quickly. And in most cases, it's about 80% of that company's revenue. So for Canada, our 3,000 Canadian customers are worth millions of dollars compared to the small amount of new business sales that our team is now doing. And so to cover some of the secrets, and Haley will go into this a lot more, but if I were to really distill client success in one slide, it would be this one. So the secret to customer retention is making sure that your customers are happy and successful. And it sounds really simple, but when you're managing 3,000 clients, there needs to be a method to the madness. And so some of the things that we swear by and really focus on are proactive account management is one of them. So making sure that you are from the onset working with those customers very closely to understand what their business goals are, and being able to actually tie our software to the bottom line and to understand what their specific business objectives are, be it for this year or 5-10 year span. So we are working very closely with our customers and making sure that they're trained, that we understand their role within their company, as well as their business strategy. A big part of it as well is being a trusted advisor. So we talk about that often because you are going to be working with 50, 100 customers on a day-to-day. Making sure that we're not just giving them the software, but actually delivering a solution and tailoring to their needs is very, very important. So we will often be able to offer clients a global solution, but with very localized expertise And I would say that that is one of our strong suits in understanding our client base very well. And then the last one is more focused on the client experience. So a happy customer is a customer that is heavily engaged with your product, that uses it every single day, and that is constantly reaping value from your specific software. So those would be the three buckets that we focus on a lot when working with customers. So one of the last slides I wanted to cover with you, and I felt that I would show you a visual, is the idea of keeping value high. So not only are we working with customers off the onset, but we're actually trying to maintain value for our software as their lifetime with us as a customer continues. So it's definitely an ongoing effort. What we focus on the most, and I would say one of the toughest parts of client success, is the initial onboarding and making sure that value is high off the get-go. So I think every person on this call has had the feeling of being very, very excited to purchase something, and then very quickly, if things don't go well, experiencing buyer's remorse. So we are very focused on making sure that that initial excitement turns into value, and that we're not watching that value depreciate after the deal is closed. And so Haley will touch on the client experience, but that initial onboarding phase is one of the most important times in a client's life cycle. And so we focus very quickly on understanding that business's needs, the reasons that they purchased our tool, and how they're hoping to prove their return on investment. So they just spent a lot of money on a software. How can they prove to their executives that that software was worth it? So we are very focused on that bottom line, and then building a trusting relationship with the client as we work to implement it and train the users so that they can adopt our product. So a little bit about the client lifecycle as I pass it on to Haley to go into more depth.
Well, thanks, Jess, and thanks for the background. Now let's talk about CS KPIs. When a customer ends their partnership or subscription with your company, that's when the customer churns. And churn is a great metric to measure, especially on a rep-to-rep basis. A customer success rep who maintains a healthy relationship with each of their customers is likely to have a lower churn or cancellation rate. But churn can be measured a few different ways, depending on what makes the most sense for your business. First, you could look at logo churn, which is the number of companies that are lost during a particular time period. You could also look at revenue churn, which is the dollar value from downgrades and cancellations. So for example, if you have 10 customers and one of them churns, by logo churn, you've lost 10% of your business. But let's say one of those customers pays $50 and the rest of them pay $10. If you lose the $50 account, you've churned 35% of your monthly revenue. But you should measure your company's net churn in addition to gross churn, which factors in any additional revenue from upgrades or service expansions from your existing customers. So if you upsell an existing customer a $50 monthly product, it could offset your revenue churn loss, making your gross churn 35%, but your net churn 0%. As we mentioned earlier, the secret to customer retention is making sure that the customers are happy and successful. So let's explore how to measure the health of the customer portfolio. In understanding the health of your company's portfolio, it's important to look at the big picture. Beyond individual tickets and emails, are your customers actually seeing value from your product or service? Depending on your business, there are dozens of factors you can consider that will help determine the health of your customers. But by combining these factors, you can create a predictive health score that helps your team uncover churn risks and act on them proactively, so your team can reach out before it's too late. Health scores vary by industry, and how you calculate them for your company, as I mentioned, will totally depend on how the customer behavior metrics you find most valuable. But to start, keep it simple. Most companies look at a health score that's mainly a function of product usage and your relationship with the customer. So basically, when you were last in touch with them. But customer success is no longer just about getting someone to sign on the dotted line, setting up their new service, and answering emails or phone calls. Instead, reps need to ensure that their customers are not only surviving, but thriving with their product. They must follow up with clients, offer assistance with problems, and help them proactively strategize for the future. In SaaS, there are dozens of reasons why a company might churn or cancel their partnership. But most frequently, we've found that the root of all cancellations come from these four: not building value, not engaging with decision makers, a poor onboarding, and a lack of proactive support. Jess, I actually remember you having told me a really good example of a customer that you guys were working with in Canada. Do you think you could share that with us?
Yeah. So it's actually great because I think this customer falls into all four buckets, which is obviously what we're trying to avoid, but it'll be a very good example for our audience as you familiarize yourself with customer success for the first time for many of you. So one of the most exciting brands we started working with in Canada many years ago was Lululemon. And so again, it was one of the best logos to bring on. They're, a yoga athleisure brand. They made a name for themselves by creating, high quality, very comfortable yoga wear. And it was a customer whose needs very much evolved over the course of their time with us. And I think what we failed to do as a customer success team was we failed to continue building value throughout their life cycle with us. So their onboarding with us was smooth, and I think that the users were all very much trained and the solution was implemented. But from that perspective, we failed to continue to train team members as new people join the team. So that was one thing. But most importantly, when it came to building value, if we're looking at Lululemon as a business and some of their strategic goals, we failed to stay on top of their goals as those needs evolved. So when we first inherited Lululemon, they were still a fairly new Canadian brand, and they were still very much looking to expand globally. So they didn't necessarily have a presence in APAC, in Australia, in some of the European countries that they are now very present in. So our work with them at the very beginning was to make sure that they were a well-known established brand globally. So we were able to provide them with local Canadian support, work with them out of Vancouver, but then allow them to understand how their brand and their competitors are being perceived across the world, be it the UK, Australia. They were very much tapping into other Anglophone markets in the rest of the world. However, their needs actually very quickly evolved. They had such rapid growth that they then moved into, I would say, a more ambitious phase of their growth. They had a new CEO come in, and that CEO had a very concrete goal of trying to double men's sales by 2025. So they wanted to be a brand that now sold sportswear, not just yoga wear, but they wanted to compete with Nike. They wanted to compete with Under Armour. They wanted to make sure that their men's sales was on par with a Nike or Under Armour. And we failed to recognize that goal. And so therefore, the value we were providing for them was such a small portion of what we could have done. Taking it a step further, though, how we did manage to save the customer once we understood what their needs were to take that a step farther and now anticipate what future goals were. So at the start of COVID, Lululemon had a very interesting pivot in their business yet again. What they decided to do was they started to focus on at-home workouts. They wanted to get into the at-home workout space and subscription space, actually, and compete with the Pelotons of the world. So they made a very strategic acquisition. They acquired a company called Mirror that is in the workout space, at-home workout space. And so we are now helping them track for their brand as it relates to Mirror. We're trying to track for Peloton and other up and coming at-home workout subscriptions. So the whole point is that throughout a customer journey, if you aren't building value continuously and constantly tying it to that company's bottom line and business strategy, you can very quickly lose that customer's trust. And where we see customer success teams, I wouldn't say fail, but struggle, is that you become very reactive and all you're trying to do is just provide support. You're answering questions, you're training a user. Those are very tactical ways of doing customer success, when in fact, what we hadn't done was we hadn't engaged with the main decision maker. That VP of communications and marketing clearly had very specific goals as it related to attracting a male audience now, or attracting people that were using Peloton. And we completely missed the boat on that, or at least realized it too late. So the most exciting part of customer success is how fluid and how ever changing it is. And every customer at the drop of a hat could be changing their strategy, and you need to be able to, as a vendor, evolve with them if you're going to do customer success right.
Awesome. Such an insightful story. Thanks for sharing, Jess. I think that was a great example. Well, that concludes our presentation. Hopefully you guys joined and loved our session today, but stay on the line for a Q&A. We'll be doing a Q&A for 15 minutes, so we'd love to have you. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.